and they're fifth generation viticulturalists. What a lot of people don't know is that all of Sicily is volcanic, soil called tuff, in Italian tuffo. And that's the soil that we have in Contessa, and it's been one of my favorite wines from DiGiovanna since I first came. And I love wine pairing. And the first thing we started talking about is the restaurants, and I gave him a list of where to eat in Sicily.
Tell us about your incredible wine region. Tell us about the lots that your winery has and how it's created and how you produce your grapes.
Yeah, sure. So I'm part of the DiGiovanna family now. My husband, Gunther, his brother, Klaus, they're half German, half Sicilian. Their mom is German. Dad is from Sicily, a small village called Sambuca di Sicilia, which is in the western part of Sicily, between Palermo and Agrigento, and they're fifth generation viticulturalists. So I don't necessarily say winemakers because the winemaking history in Sicily is fairly recent, but the viticultural history is very long. So it dates back to Phoenician times, viticulture and also winemaking, and then the Greeks. And the DiGiovanna property is fifth generation, so their great grandfather started actually making wine. He had vineyards, and he made his own Nardavla, but it was for home use for the family. And it was a really good product because he sent it out to competitions in Tuscany and France. So he was very proud of his Nardavla, but that was the start of the family business. And then Gunther and Klaus, along with their father, reconsolidated the property and replanted everything. Before that, they were selling their grapes to the co-op, the local co-op, which is how a lot of Sicilian families started. They would, focus on the viticulture and then harvest and take the grapes to the co-op, and the co-op would make the wine for everybody. Then they started to think about making high quality wine in the 80s, replanted everything, and then the wine cellar was built in 2003. So we're actually a fairly young winery. If you look at some of the really historic estates in, France or Piedmont or Tuscany. So we have a lot of road to go, but it's fun because, it's more dynamic. When you have less history, you have more creativity and flexibility to innovate and to do new things that maybe more traditional winemaking regions cannot do. So the property is divided into 5 vineyards between 2 small DOCs, Contessa Entellina and Sambuca di Sicilia. There's 65 hectares. And the interesting thing about the area is the altitude. So we're actually on 2 sides of a protected nature reserve in the mountains. And the vineyards go up to 2,800 feet above sea level. So even though Sicily is a pretty warm Mediterranean climate, our wines have a really incredible freshness to them.
You're a newer winery from the 80s. What year did you first produce?
So Gunther and Klaus actually started producing 2 wines that they made at the local co-op. They were called Gerbino Chardonnay and Gerbino Rosso in the mid-90s. And their first export market was Germany because, of course, their mother is German. They speak German. And it was natural for them to find that as their first export market. So in the 90s, in the mid-90s, they started making a couple wines, and then they slowly expanded. Today we have 12 different wines: white, rosé, we have an orange wine, a sparkling wine, and a few reds.
Nice. And we're going to get into in a second. Soil is so important, obviously, for winemaking itself, but there's so many people who I'm going to affectionately refer to them as wine geeks who really get into the science of the soil. So can you talk a little bit about the vineyard itself and the soils being used?
Yeah. So the area of Contessa Entellina, which I mentioned, is a small DOC. It's in the province of Palermo. It's actually really well known for its white wines and also for Nardavla. So the base of the soil in Contessa Entellina, these are high hillside areas, so they range from an average of 1,400 up to 1,800 feet above sea level. It's a really open space, no forests or anything. It's just like basically on one side of this forest, but they're really open, high hillsides. It's a very windy zone. It's pretty well known for how windy it is. And the soil is really particular because it's old volcanic soil called tuff. So all of Sicily is volcanic. Of course, we have the active volcano on Etna, which is on the eastern coast. It's hours from where we are, so it doesn't affect our climate at all. But what a lot of people don't know is that all of Sicily is volcanic. So there's really, really old, ancient volcanic soil called tuff, in Italian tuffo. And that's the soil that we have in Contessa Entellina. So it's actually a really, really poor soil, and it has really good drainage. So the water doesn't stay in the soil. It's actually an ideal soil for Neradavola, where we have a little bit of clay mix, also for Syrah. And then there's also some limestone components in the soil, and that's where we have a lot of our white varieties planted, like Grillo and Catarato. And then as you go up into the mountains, actually on the other side of the mountains, you find the DOC of Sambuca di Sicilia. So it's kind of divided in a couple of different areas. There's a small area of Sambuca di Sicilia that is around the lake called Lago Arancio, right near the town of Sambuca. And that is like a more, I'm forgetting the word in English. It's a more moderate, more moderate climate because you have the influence of the lake. And there's a lot of vineyards around there. And then ours is kind of separated from that area because we're going towards Giuliana into the mountains. And the vineyards that we have are actually, and the wine cellar is right below this forest, a protected nature reserve called Monte Genuardo. And here the vineyards go up until 2,800 feet above sea level. They're starting at about 2,000 feet. And the soil is marl, calcareous marl, and it gets stonier and stonier as you go up towards the forest. And when you get to the top of the vineyards, which is our Grillo at 830 meters, it's all just stone, white stones. So it's a really, really particular microclimate that you can't find in many parts of Sicily.
I got to taste a lot of varietals that, frankly, at least I personally don't get to taste as often. And so it's an amazing discovery. And that's part of what helps us fall in love with your area so much. Now, speaking of falling in love with your area, you poured several great wines at that tasting. But let's talk about, you mentioned a few minutes ago, your I'm going to call it a lineup or a roster of wines. Talk us through some of your favorite wines, taste profile, aromas.
So the first one that I ever tasted from DiGiovanna was in 2006 in Tuscany at a producer trade tasting. And I just remember the incredible minerality of this wine and how unique it was. And in those years, there were not a lot of good rosés coming out of Italy. And I think the French really had the corner on the market there. And a lot has changed, of course, over the last almost 20 years. But that's been one of my favorite wines from DiGiovanna since I first tasted it, is our rosé made with Nerello Mascalese. So this is a typical grape from Etna, of course, but Gunther and Klaus's father brought the grape to Sambuca in 1968 and introduced it to Sambuca because he was a member of the local co-op, and they were experimenting with different varieties. And a few different enologists thought it would be interesting. It would have interesting results in our area because of the volcanic soil and also the elevation. So we also make a red with Nerello Mascalese, but the rosé is really, really interesting because it has this really citrusy aromatic component, a lot of freshness, and a really, really unique savory quality on the palate. So it's definitely dry. And I think this kind of like salty savoriness on the finish is really, really unique. And I don't find that in a lot of rosé wines. So that's been my favorite for so many years. We have some new wines in production that have kind of that I'm kind of loving. One is our new Patnat. It's made with Catarato. And I really love this grape. It doesn't necessarily have the best reputation in Sicily because it's been used for a long time to make more like bulk wine or like just easy drinking white. It tends to have kind of like a bitterness to it when it's like the grapes are not the highest quality. So this vinification method is perfect for Catarato. Catarato typically is really lemony, a little bit of herbaceous, and really, really fresh. It's very resistant to the sun here. The sugar levels don't go very high, so it retains high acidity, low sugar levels. So it just makes this really, really fresh, savory, citrusy white that I think is perfect for all the Sicilian, lighter fish dishes like grilled calamari, white grilled fish. So I love that. And it has just a little bit of a sparkle to it, like almost like a beer. So a little bit cloudy, but still really fresh, not too funky. Just kind of the right balance of like funky, freshness, citrus, herbaceous. So that's one of our new wines. And then we're also doing an orange wine made with Grillo. So Grillo, of course, is Western Sicily's most important white grape. And, it's one of the it's the DOC Sicilia's white variety. We have the Grillo and then the Nardabla. And Grillo is really great for the orange wine production because the skins are really thick. They have really beautiful, almost like golden orangey color. And we do a fermentation on the skins with no added sulfites for about 6 days. And then the wine basically takes on this really bright orange color. And it's something between a light to medium style orange. So it's savory, it's fresh, like a lot of our wines. It's very aromatic, but it has this really unique texture, a lot of stone fruit on the palate, like apricot and white peach, that just reminds you of Sicily, like early fall in Sicily, late summer.
Can we talk a little bit about the incredible cuisine of your region and the kind of foods that you love pairing with these wines?
Yeah, of course, I'm a foodie. That's how I actually got into wine, is working in hospitality with food. And I love the business, and I love dining out. I love traveling. I love experiencing culture through cuisine. And I love wine pairing. I just actually met some guests in our tasting room from Philadelphia. And the first thing we started talking about is the restaurants. And I gave them a list of where to eat in Sicily. So it's like one of my first topics.
Nice. So what kind of meals are perfect to pair with your bottles? What do you love?
Well, usually anything that is Mediterranean, first of all. So basically, think about typical Southern Italian meals, and usually they're going to work pretty well with our wine. So, and then I think about seasonality a lot. So, in the spring here, we have, like, for example, fava beans, peas. We have the wild asparagus. We have a lot of wild herbs like wild fennel that we do a pasta dish with fresh ricotta and wild fennel. So thinking about the spring, I think about, like the Catarato would be really nice. Even the Buria Grillo, which is really fresh, white, very fruity, but savory as well. Even the rosé could be nice with that. And then, going into the summer, there's a lot of tuna, swordfish, grilled calamari, octopus is big here. And then we get into the late summer with eggplant, tomatoes, peppers. So we could do the Buria Rosato again there. Another fun wine, even if you're a lover of red wine, like a lighter red, like Pinot style, and you like to do the grilled fish with eggplant, tomato, olives. Capers, Cinderella Mascalese red's really interesting. That is aged in stainless steel. So it's really, really fresh, really light, a lot of red fruit like pomegranate, red cherry. little bit smoky. I love that with grilled, like fatty fish. It's really great. Fall, squash is big here. Risotto, even radicchio. I would think about the orange wine, I think. Could do the Norella Muscalese again, roasted meats. Lamb is also really popular in Sicily. Grilled lamb, grilled sausage. There's a lot of grilled sausage eating here, a lot of barbecues happening. So Nardavola is perfect because it has kind of like this wildness to it, a little bit of herbaceousness, a lot of wild berry fruits, a little black pepper. So I think that's really great with, thinking about grilled lamb, rack of lamb in the oven, sausage, pork, even eggplant. For example, pasta alla norma, which is a very traditional Southern Italian. In Abruzzo, they say it's their pasta dish. I think in Campania, they say the same thing. And in Sicily, they say it's theirs too. So I don't know where it originates from, but there's a lot of pasta alla norma here. And that is, of course, the fried eggplant, tomato sauce, basil, and you put the ricotta salato on top. And I usually serve that with our Muria Nardavola, which is some part aged in stainless steel and the rest oak. So it's more of a fresh, really elegant style of Nardavola that pairs really well with pasta alla norma.
How do we learn more about your winery? Where can we find the bottles if we want to taste, we want to bring some home? So tell the audience who's watching and listening how to learn more, how to follow you on social media, and where we can find your wines.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. So on social media, we're DiGiovanna Wine, and we try to keep the page very colorful and fun and not too boring. So it's a pretty active page, and it's really important for us to keep everybody updated on what we're doing and about our products. So DiGiovanna Wine on Facebook and Instagram. And our website, you can find information on all of our wines. We also make extra virgin olive oil. Our website is DiGiovanna with a dash between DI and Giovanna.com. And there's our contact info there if you ever want to write to us or come visit. We also do wine tourism. So if anyone's ever coming to Sicily, you're more than welcome to visit us. We have a tasting room that's open Monday through Saturdays, and we offer a lot of different tours from like guided 3 to 5 wine tasting tours. We do a Nardavola vertical. We also just started doing picnics under the olive trees, which is really nice. And so you'll find information on all of our wine tourism offers too on our website. And where to find our wine, I would suggest wine.com.
Wine.com. Okay, that's an easy one. I really, really appreciate your time. I loved tasting your wine.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time.